It is Monday, November 15, 2021, and this morning I got a phone call. And from that phone call, we are just so honored and blessed to have with us in the studio candidate for governor of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, Congresswoman Tina Sablan. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being here. And is this your first interview since your announcement?
It is certainly my first live in-person interview. I actually did one by Zoom this morning.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but definitely my first in-person interview. So
This
thank
is so
you for
cool.
having me.
No, thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure.
I mean, do you want to tell our viewers in the Commonwealth why you're actually on Guam?
Sure. Yeah. It's no secret. I've been quite open about having to come here. My father is here on medical referral, and so I'm here as caregiver. And after completing his procedure last week, we're hoping he can get clearance to head back to Saipan. So we should be coming back home very shortly.
And you're both excited?
Yes, so ready to be home. Yeah.
Well, when then Senator Eddie Calvo in 2009 was starting his campaign for governor, he's a member of the legislature as well, right? There are some, well, let's not say parallels, but I mean, politically there are some parallels, right? And one of the things that the campaign committee had talked about was, starting off these commercials about issues, and I said, well, I think we have to really introduce the senator to the people of Guam. And everyone said, what are you talking about? Everyone knows him. He's Eddie Calvo. I said, yeah, everyone knows his name, but nobody really knows who he is. Even though he's been in the legislature for so long, like there's a difference between being in the legislature and running for governor. There's maybe a bit more intimacy is desired by the people because it's just that one candidate. So can you tell the people of the Commonwealth and the people of Guam, who are you?
Wow, that's a very deep question, Troy. Well, I guess I'll begin with I'm first and foremost a citizen of the Commonwealth, born and raised in the Marianas, born and raised in Saipan, primarily in the villages of Tinapik and Chalacanoa. I'm a daughter of two wonderful parents, Eugenio and Carmela. I'm a sister. I have three sisters and a younger brother. I am an auntie to many. I'm a godmother of three. I'm the mother of a small, fluffy poodle.
Her name is Rosie.
Her name is Rosie. She's the apple of my eye. And I am also a legislator. This is my third term in public office, and before that, I've worked in other capacities in public service. That's why I worked for Congressman Kilili in both the Washington, D.C. and the district office in the Commonwealth. I've worked as a reporter, so I have a great appreciation and respect for the work that journalists do in keeping government honest and accountable and asking the tough questions. And I've also worked as an advocate, like not just in a professional capacity, but also just as an active citizen, advocating for workers, advocating for the environment and public health. And I've been doing much of that work, for most of my adult life, really, since returning back to the Marianas after completing my college education. So that's part of who I am. Yeah.
Well, let's fast forward. When is the general election? Is it November 6th?
November 2022. So yeah.
November, and I believe it might be November 6th, 2022. It's sometime in November 20. Let's fast forward to the day of the general election. And normally when people, especially if they're undecided on that day, they go into the ballot box and they look at the names. Normally they choose the person who they just like better. And for whatever reason, there can be several reasons why they would like that person better. Why should people like you? Why would people like you? Why would people choose you to be their governor?
I think people know that I would be coming in as a leader they can trust. I think that's really important. I think I have a solid record of representing the people of the Marianas honestly and ethically, and I work really hard. I've worked hard at all the jobs I've ever held, and in my capacity as a legislator, they know that I will do my research, I will do my due diligence, I will ask questions and really weigh the pros and the cons and the consequences, not just for now, but also for the future. I think it's so important and something that's been lacking in our government to have leaders who make decisions with an eye for the next generation. And people should know that I would be that kind of leader. I would be that kind of governor. And if that is the kind of change that they want, then that is what I'm here to offer.
We have a situation not just in the Commonwealth, but also here on Guam, where we have governors who don't like to admit their shortcomings or where it is they're not very keen on accepting criticism from the media, from the public, and if you tell them something that is, they're going to push back.
Yeah.
So I want to know, and I think that people want to know whether you would display those same sort of characteristics, and if not, then can you tell us what are the criticisms that people have of you?
Yeah.
And what would you do about it?
Sure. I mean, I think it's important for anybody who's thinking about running for office to have a certain level of self-awareness, right? About where your blind spots might be, where your weaknesses might be. I have certainly done a lot of just, soul searching and thinking even just about running for the legislature in these last few years, right? Running for office again. And then now running for governor, I really had to do a lot of reflection. And today, an earlier question that was asked to me was a little more pointed. It was like, how would you respond to the criticism that you haven't done anything? I was like, is that really a criticism? Are people really saying that? I think that like part of where that criticism comes from. I mean, and I acknowledge it. That is something that I have heard. I have critics on social media. No matter what we do.
They're called trolls, but I think it's indisputable that you've done quite a bit, especially over the past couple of years. And you were the person who actually made the motion to enter into the legislature's official record the documents that are now the subject of the investigation against Governor Ralph Torres. You made that motion. I was there when you made that motion.
That's right, and that was continuing on, a lot of work that went into, obtaining those documents in the first place and reviewing them and analyzing them, and then ultimately preparing the report that was submitted to the House in the previous term, right?
Yes.
So I think that one of the criticisms going back to that was that I haven't passed that many bills, and there's not that many bills that have been signed into law that have my name on it, and.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, the less laws the legislature passes, the better, especially here on Guam.
And I think it's important to recognize that there are lots of bad bills that come out of the legislature, and I think part of my role, especially being in the minority for most of my terms in the legislature, was to raise some red flags and help stop some bills or make them better, right, before they got signed into law. And and then also because I've been serving in the minority up until this term, a lot of what I've had to do was really collaborate and work behind the scenes and let other members take the credit for whatever work was going into the bill that was on the table at the time, right?
Sure.
And so there's that. I think that I've also been accused of being very stubborn and not willing to compromise and absent-minded.
What's the absent-minded about?
That's more like my family, just losing my glasses since I was a little kid. but I like to tell them, and there is a study, absent-minded children are actually thinking deep thoughts. And they're intelligent in other ways.
Right on. That's absolutely true. I think that partly answers that first question I asked you about who are you. All right. So what other criticisms are out there that you want to, I guess, have a conversation with
Yeah.
critics about? Because you're basically asking them to vote for you.
Right. Well, I think that one criticism that I would like to address at this point is that I'm not capable of compromise. I've heard more than a few people say that, and and including people that I trust and who are really just looking out for me, right? And and I think a lot of that perception goes back to my very first term in office, which was more than 10 years ago. And I was coming in as the youngest legislator, as my very first term, my very first foray into politics.
You were the young whippersnapper of the legislature.
Yeah, nobody wanted to listen to me. and I felt like throughout those 2 years in office that I was just constantly fighting, constantly, in some ways like bashing my head against a wall. And I think that fed into that perception, right? But that was also 10 years ago, and I've learned a lot since then. I mean, that experience made me so much tougher in a lot of ways, but it also, over the course of the years that have followed, I've also learned that there is more than one way to approach an issue, more than one way to approach a conflict, right? And I have a much greater appreciation now. I think a lot of my colleagues can attest to that for collaboration and for seeking consensus and trying to find the middle ground, particularly if you have some common goal, but maybe you disagree about how you want to get there. I think that's important in the legislature, and that would be important in the governor's seat too.
So Tanya Salas, Congresswoman, could you move your phone forward? I think we're getting interference from the microphone or from the phone.
Okay.
So Tanya Salas says, that's very true. Biba Tina, she's the right candidate for our children's future. Patricia Nogis, I'm so sorry if I'm saying your Nogis, says Biba Rep Tina Sablan 2022. Jonay Sablan Shaw says, Sablan strong, Biba Congresswoman Tina Sablan. Sandra Ray Giselle, who actually is a Republican candidate for the legislature here, says Tina is someone the people of the CNMI can trust to do what's right for her people. Jose Tetapago Jr. says, our governor doesn't deflection. I love Jose Tetapago Jr. He says, can you please run in Guam because our governor has dementia, si miss forget me not, you. See, Jen Magdalena says, we choose Tina because she's a strong fighter for our Commonwealth. She's a straight up talker. I'm getting a compliment from Jose Tetapago Jr. Thank you, Jose. Okrang Mad says, Biba, Congresswoman Tina Sablan. See, Jen Magdalena says, it's time we have a truthful leaders that is all for our people. JDC Beneventi says, I think for the fourth time in the comments, Biba Tina Sablan.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you everybody.
Nola Hicks says, in Tina we trust, let's go CNMI, hashtag Tina for you in 2022. That's catchy. That is catchy.
Thank you, Nola.
PJ Exlin T. Santos says Tina 2022. Saipan Hoffaday says governor with a brain desperately needed. PJ Exlin T. Santos says time to wake up CNMI. Vote Tina 2022. So there seems to be a groundswell of support for change in the Commonwealth, change from the Torres administration. But you are not the only change candidate who has come out of the gate. The Lieutenant Governor, Arnold Palacios, who first, prior to his official announcement, went before the legislature, you were there, right? Mm-hmm. And he distanced himself from Governor Ralph Torres. And then a couple of weeks later, he has an official kickoff with Mayor David Apateng, and he basically presents himself as a change candidate. Mm-hmm. You are also a change candidate. What is the difference? What is, and why are you the better candidate, I suppose, to be the change advocate?
Well, let me just say from the outset that I have a lot of respect for Lieutenant Governor Arnold Palacios. We have a good relationship. He actually was the Speaker of the House during my first term in the legislature. So back in the 16th, and
was he one of the ones who was not listening to what you were saying?
actually, Speaker Arnold Palacios was very fair to all of the members, and I always appreciated that about him. Now, having said that, I think he's acknowledged too that the criticism of him is that he has been serving as the lieutenant governor under this very troubled Tourist administration, and that the criticism is that he has been complicit to a degree.
And he said I should have said something earlier. It's basically what he said, right?
And so I think that criticism is fair, and he will have to answer for that in the next year. I think also it's fair to say that it's not like he went into, the campaign with Ralph Torres blind. It's not like people close to him, friends and family, I mean, they also warned him about running with Ralph Torres. And keep in mind, like that, the election, the decision for them to run together happened shortly after the Bloomberg article came out. This expose of the closeness of the Torres family, Governor Torres himself, with the casino,
with the Communist Party of China,
and by extension, sure, and so. There were all kinds of red flags, and and I think, maybe he went into it with good intentions. He'll have to explain that himself, but I think it also says something about the difference in judgment too, right, between us. And I think you're right that there is this groundswell of support and yearning for real change, and part of the reason why I'm putting my name out there and running on the Democratic ticket is because I think it's so important for people to have real choices in this 2022 election. And that the choice cannot be just a choice between the Republican incumbent, Ralph Torres, and the disgruntled, sort of pushed out Republican Lieutenant Governor Arnold Palacios. There has to be another choice. And if people want kind of a fresh start in government and a reset and leadership that they know they will be able to trust, that they know will look after them and cares about their well-being, cares about how the decisions we make now impact future generations, that they will have that choice as well on the ballot.
What are you going to do to convince 50% plus one of the electorate, like bam, on the night of the general election or on the day of the general election, 50% plus one of the electorate chooses you as that change agent and elects you governor? What are you going to do to convince that many people? Because there are 3 candidates going in.
Absolutely. And I think we probably all have the goal of getting to 50% plus one and avoiding a runoff, right? Yeah. So what that means is, the work begins now. The work begins, going house to house and visiting people in their homes and or doing as much canvassing and getting the message out, engaging in debates. I'm looking forward to the debate with Ralph Torres. And
I think a lot of people are looking forward to that.
I mean, I think it'll be interesting, and I think I know I will have a lot to say, right? And so between now and November 2022, I'll just be doing the work, working really hard, building our team. I've been really, really encouraged by all the phone calls and messages and the emails that I receive from people of all ages, all different groups in the community that have said that they want to help, they want to volunteer, they want to help on all 3 islands, right? And so I'm very grateful for that, and I'm looking forward when I do get back to Saipan to hitting the ground running and mobilizing our team.
Have you and Nola started to build your village organization? Your grassroots movement?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been working for several years now to rebuild the Democratic Party and to build party memberships across the Commonwealth, all 3 islands. And, that work hasn't stopped, and that will certainly continue. Like now that we're going into this general election, we have, for the first time in a long time, Democratic gubernatorial candidates and a Democratic delegate that's on the slate, right? And so, we're going to be doing everything that we can to fill out the slate and support all our candidates up and down the ballot.
Right on. And speaking of the ticket, candidate for lieutenant governor, give us an update.
So that search process is still ongoing. Last I saw, there were the search committee had managed to narrow down a list of over 20 potential names. So
these are people who submitted their interest?
Either people who had submitted their interest or people who had nominated other people.
Wow.
to be considered.
So there's
right?
excitement.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm excited.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful, for this process, and I really appreciate the work of the search committee, the work of our chair, and the party officers, and just helping to vet all the different names that have been submitted, help to narrow down the list so that we find somebody who's electable, who shares a lot of the same values and the goals of myself and also our democratic platform, and somebody I can work with and collaborate with and help lead the Commonwealth.
Someone you can ask to do the ribbon cutting ceremonies for you. And they're groundbreaking
We'll definitely
ceremonies.
have to share that work.
Sandra Regis-Sale says, I'll tell my dad to have his family and friends in Saipan vote for you.
Oh, thank you, Sandra.
Fabian Indalecio. Biba Fabian says, my $1 million prediction is Tina Sablan will win if there's no change in Ralph and Arnold to remain as candidate, whereas Tina will be a victory against Ralph. 3 ways will take a miracle to garner 50% plus 1. Josie says Tina and Probst. Rosalia doing it says is watching Buenas para todos CNMI and Tonto Guam and everyone watching. God bless. Fabian says I support Tina Sablan. Once she is victory, I will be eyeballing her thereafter.
Thank you, Fabian. I totally appreciate that. And yeah.
Ben
I
Kai
love
Santos. I love Fabian too, and I've never even met him. Ben Kai Santos says she's for the people of 670 CNMI. Biba Marianas, Biba Governor Tina Sablan. Let's do this. Rai Thena Tua gives his vote for Lieutenant Governor to Ed Probst. JDC Beneventi says Governor Rafet said there is still so much to be done, and that to be done is still so much more baloney to fulfill. The governor has actually been the governor for quite some time, hasn't he? It's been
Right.
6 years.
Since 2015, that's right,
Since
when he
2015.
ascended to the position after
When Governor
Enos
Enos
passed
died.
away. Right.
Yeah. Melanie Nels Teregezu Wenyo says Tina Sablan all the way 2022. Now 2022 is in the future.
Mhm.
And if you're blessed to have a 4-year term that begins in 2023, January 2023, and ends in January 2027, am I getting that right? Yes, 2027.
Mhm.
Much of what a governor does can have absolutely an effect on the current state of affairs. But there are things that a governor does or doesn't do that will affect the people of the body politic for quite some time after. And the best governors and the best presidents have been those who've had a vision and who rooted their decisions and their projects and programs in that vision. They saw something that nobody else saw. If you are Governor Tina Sablan, what is the vision of the CNMI that you have 20 years after you leave office as the governor?
I think about that all the time. And I have thought about that vision for the Commonwealth for years now.
Okay.
Part of my background, part of my training is in planning.
You're an urban planner.
I am. I have a master's in planning. But even before I decided to go to school to pursue formal education in planning, I was actually doing a lot of just community work, sitting down with ordinary folks just like me, right, other citizens, to ask them and kind of tease out where do you see the Commonwealth 10, 20 years from now? What's important to you? What do you love about living in the Marianas that we want to protect and make better, right? And in thinking about whether I even wanted to submit my letter of intent and take this next step and run for governor, one of the things I did, I was look back on this essay that I wrote. It was a 1 blog post, right? More than 10 years ago. But it was and at the time I was really feeling sort of downtrodden about the state of the CNMI. This was 10 years ago, so the economy was, tanking. There was a lot of frustration with the state of the government at the time. A lot of concerns about public corruption and just really poor governance all around. And
we're back to that.
And we have come full circle. I'm not even sure that we ever really left that, to be honest. But but I wrote it at the time to, in some ways, inspire myself and keep me hopeful, right? And if it's okay with you, I would love to just read some of that, because
We would
what I
love to hear it.
realized, what I realized, in making the decision to run for governor is that like my vision and my hope for the CNMI has been consistent. It's developed, it's deepened over the years, but the vision is very much the same. And so
Let's hear this.
I
You brought it with you?
I pulled
What's-
it up. It's online actually.
Oh, okay. So you go to your website, or so you have a blog site.
It's literally a one-post blog. I wrote it, and I felt like it was so cathartic, and I never wrote anything after that on that one blog.
So this is something you hold so near and dear to you that when I ask you this question, you automatically thought of it.
I've been yes, absolutely, because I've been thinking about this for years.
Okay.
And I think it's
Perfect
been part,
question then.
Yeah, it's been part of like just my journey in public service, and also like just something and it didn't just come from me. It came from those years, those meetings in the coffee shops back home, right? And just like talking to people and listening to them and really trying to imagine what the Commonwealth could be, right? So I called it Dreaming the Marianas.
Okay.
One day we will wake up to a beautiful morning in the Northern Mariana Islands. Our villages will be charming and well kept, each with its own unique character. We will all tend our own gardens, and there will be flowers and shade trees in every yard, on every street. I'm not going to read everything. I'll just skip through some of the paragraphs.
So you're welcome to read the whole thing if you want.
Really? Okay.
Yes. I think people need to hear it.
Our homes will be cool, spacious, and energy efficient, designed for the tropics. Our neighborhoods will be connected by green spaces, parks and natural forests, orchards and farms, recreational fields. Our business districts will be attractive, lively, and clean. All the buildings will be freshly painted, well designed, and beautifully landscaped. Our beaches will be pristine, our lagoon and reefs bountiful. There will be large swaths of protected forest where we and our families will enjoy long hikes and the abundance of native birds and plants. I love birds, always have. So I had to put that in.
We don't have many here on Guam.
I know, yeah. Our meals will be rich and fresh local ingredients. We will drink and bathe in clean water from the tap and harvest plentiful rainwater for our gardens and kitchens. We will walk or bike most places and enjoy well-maintained sidewalks, wide bicycle lanes, and pleasant shade trees lining our streets. We will rarely drive, and when we do, we will take public transportation or carpool in efficient vehicles powered by renewable energy. We will live longer, healthier, and richer lives. Diabetes, heart disease, cancer, obesity, and other chronic conditions will be rare. Addictions to tobacco, alcohol, or any other substance will also be rare. And when we do get sick, we will go to the local hospital and clinics and receive excellent care. Our doctors, nurses, and medical support staff will be among the happiest and most compassionate of their peers in the world, and they will have all the resources they need to be effective. Our villages will be safe. Crime will be rare. Neighbors will look after each other. Our police officers will be rigorously trained, well compensated, passionate public servants, and they will hold themselves and each other to the highest ethical standards. They will be supported by capable and principled superiors and work closely with competent prosecuting attorneys who will have the resources they need to hold criminals accountable, defend the rights of victims, and restore justice in the community. And those accused of crimes will have fair trials before highly qualified judges of unimpeachable integrity and before honorable and objective jurors. Most of us will work in the private sector, and many of us will proudly run our own successful enterprises. Dependence on welfare assistance will be both temporary and rare. Our government will be small, lean, and responsive, driven by a civil service corps that is renowned in the Pacific for professionalism, courtesy, and efficiency. Those individuals who are politically appointed will be eminently qualified and carefully vetted, and they will earn the respect of the people. Our elections will be clean, transparent, and issue-driven. Our candidates will be principled, honest, and highly qualified. Our governor will be a visionary who will lead by example and appeal to the best in us, to our highest aspirations as a people. The governor and the legislature will pass a balanced budget every year and set aside a reserve for future emergencies or investments. The budget will reflect the sound priorities and long-term interests of our community. Our public hearings will be well attended. Our views will be aired openly and without fear. Our government officials will listen. Our press corps, this is for you, Troy, will be vigilant, independent, curious, courageous, and energetic. They will ask tough questions and probe relentlessly for answers. They will investigate tips, follow up on stories. They will have long memories, and they will remind us when history seems to repeat itself and when we seem to have forgotten lessons of the past. They will care about the well-being of the community. And we in the Commonwealth will be famous throughout the world for our hospitality. Tourists will be treated warmly wherever they go. They will see our islands as a place of safe refuge, beauty, and relaxation. And we will be proud to share with them our rich history, traditions, foods, languages, and natural wonders. They will be astounded at the diversity and strength of the cultures that coexist peacefully and proudly in the Marianas. We will send our children to schools that will teach them to be conscientious citizens, curious and concerned about the world around them. Our children will be unafraid to ask questions and to take responsibility for their actions and for the welfare of their community. The world we leave to them will be better than the one we inherited, and they will understand their obligations to future generations. They will make us proud. One day we will wake up to a beautiful morning in the Northern Marianas, and our islands will rank among the safest, happiest, healthiest, and most sustainable places in the world. We will see it when we believe it.
Wow. You need to brush that off because that sounds like a perfect vision statement for your campaign. Because I suppose what you're asking people to do is to vote for you because you want to deliver something like that. You want to deliver on that vision.
And I think it's possible. I think it's so possible. There's and this is actually a common refrain that I've heard from a lot of people, like all walks of life in the Commonwealth. There's so much potential in the people, in the islands, to be among the best places in the world to live and work and visit, right? And I think what's held us back in a lot of ways has really been just poor governance, right? And I think it would make such a tremendous difference to have a governor who can really set the tone for government, right? And share that vision and inspire the community, the community to partake in that vision and help make that reality. But yeah, I absolutely think it's so possible, and I'm ready to work towards that as long as the people will want me to.
Well, in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to look at the camera that's all yours and speak directly to the voters of the Commonwealth. But I want to read some of the comments before we get to that. Josie says, I never stand on the road, but I'll do it for Tina. Saipan Hafade says, when's the kickoff rally? When is the kickoff rally?
I think we all have to get back to the island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reagan Decibel says, Tina Sablan all the way 2022, time for a change. Milani Wenyo responding to Josie says, you should join us, wave for Tina Sablan. Jose Tetbahago Jr. says, if gets seasick and doesn't go fishing with inmates or raises pigs, I'm voting for her. Nola responds to the Wednesday kickoff rally. Nola says, Saipan Hafade, when she finds her running mate, we're excited too, so stay tuned for more details. Josie says, I certainly would do that, rain or shine. Sandra Rages says, campaign hard. Josie says, don't forget to include in your platform that we need ramps at the beaches leading into the water for wheelchair access.
That's a beautiful idea.
Amy Jackson says, that is most definitely candid news. Thanks, Sister Amy. We love you. Saipan Hafade says, kickoff rally, time to flex. John and Luella Marciano Tomei say, Biba Tina Sablan.
Oh.
Congresswoman, could you do me a favor now and look straight into that camera and talk directly to the voters of the Commonwealth?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Troy. Thank you for all the viewers, the people of the Marianas who are watching tonight. I am so honored and so humbled to be your nominee for Governor of the Marianas. And what I hope to deliver to you in the next year before the election is is this vision for the Commonwealth that you can believe in, and to provide an option for leadership in the Marianas that you can trust, leadership that will listen to you, leadership that cares about upholding our laws and delivering quality services, leadership that will be fair and truthful. I'm looking to restore not just trust in our government, but also pride in our community, pride in and hope for our future. We have a great team. I'm so thankful for all the support that I've been receiving so far since making the announcement. And I'm looking forward to building not just a campaign, but a movement for better governance, the kind of governance that our people deserve, and building the kind of Marianas that our children and their children would be proud to live in and proud to contribute to. There's so much at stake. We are at such a crossroads in our history, and the decision that will be on the ballot for you in 2022 will be the choice between ending an era of corruption and waste and complacency in our government and embarking on a new path, a fresh start. And again, leadership that you can trust and that will respect you and respect our laws and provide the services and vision for the Commonwealth that you can believe in and that you can play a role as a citizen of this Commonwealth in making that vision reality. So I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to getting your feedback. I can be reached in many ways. Email tinasablan@gmail.com. My number is public information, 670-285-3935. I'm available to meet, to talk, and to hear your views, your perspective on what your hopes are for the Commonwealth and how we can work together to make those hopes reality. Thank you.
Tanya Salas says, beautifully said, Governor Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Tanya.
Ms. Sablan, thank you so much for joining us here at Kandit News.
Thank you,
It's been
Troy.
such an honor and a pleasure to have you in our studios. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kandit, and thank you, Marianas, and I just so appreciate the opportunity. So
Awesome. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres, and with me in studio is
Tina Sablan.
good night.